Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and this is a special episode today because it is after the hearing on Assange case at Royal Court in London. So I didn't get to be in London. I watched it from my cell phone, and for long hours we're waiting for decision, and Julian Assange will be able to appeal. So that, of course, was not bad news. The best line that were said in the court, we weren't broadcasted the court, okay? We weren't allowed to see, but they reported to us that basically the court says to the United States representatives, we don't believe you that you will give Assange the freedom to appeal for the First Amendment. And this is a very beautiful, this is the England that Voltaire escaped to from France. He's still, Assange is still held at Belmarsh. And I want to bring up a couple of points that kind of came up in my mind today. And the first is, it's very obvious that they're making it a framework of, let's free Assange, and wanting us to concentrate our efforts in freeing Assange rather than making the connections between WikiLeaks and world events and acting on it, which is what I'm going to be doing in the following months. Because it's not enough just to free Assange. It's also important to understand that what he did was not for nothing, and this is not caving into the framing of just to free Assange and then we'll forget about it all, and and I want to talk about today, first of all, the fact that he's held at Belmarsh. One of the things WikiLeaks has leaked was the detention for political prisoners and the way that people are held and interrogated. So I want to bring actually information as Israeli, I know. I don't remember actually the context in which I've heard this, but I know that there are people in Israeli intelligence that developed a torture-free way to interrogate people. And also, mind you, when people get to the point, because the way terror is comprised is by child trafficking, by design, world war, and endless struggle, and basically torturing people and bombing them with medicine until they do terror. Then when the people come to the actual interrogation, they begin to sing. They want to talk. Okay? And this is something I've been hearing from people, especially after 7th of October. You're at the bus, you're speaking with people, and we did that fight, and then we had to take the guns from the dead bodies of the people who came to slaughter so that we wouldn't use our ammunition and crawl amongst bodies. And there were many people who killed themselves also in the IDF for what they saw. And then you also hear about this, like when the what we call terrorist war stopped, they were interrogated. You didn't have to work hard. They just wanted to sing. Okay? And so I want us to connect the WikiLeaks and to put it in the framework of there are innovations at every field of science, including intelligence and security, and it is not the intelligence persons that develop a torture-free way to get information, which is also easier on the mind of the interrogator. Okay, it's also easier on the psychology of the intelligence person for their well-being, and thus guarantees the security of the state. If you want to actually do security of the state the way it needs to be done. And that those people, just like in the medical field, where people warn that, hey, that thing that's in the vaccine is cancer causing. I saw today a doctor on Twitter that has been warning about this, but nobody listened to her, okay? Sort of like a Code Cassandra. And those people are being targeted, from targeted and ignored to assassinated. Even the watchers before 7th of October that warned there's something's going to be, they were not ignored, they were life threatened, and they were told that the threats come from high rank. Okay, and so not only that, in 7th of October, a lot of them were slaughtered in the houses and so on. So if we connect that WikiLeaks of detention and political prisoners and the actual reality of this, the needs of security, we see that there is no need to have these procedures. Even when we talk about Belmarsh, for example, there is no need to torture Assange. There is no need to torture the people that are there. They are way more efficient and easier on the psychology of the person who is doing interrogation methods to get and meet the needs of security of the state. When we talk about political prisoners, you don't have to torture anyone. And that is something we need to know, because if you believe that this evil is necessary, you're already on the path to deteriorating if you are an intelligence person, and this is deteriorating the security of the state, and then you deal with what they call spies or this or that, or what they call bad decision making, because it is by design. Okay. And so first of all, we understand that when it comes to, let's say, Belmarsh or the conditions of Julian Assange together with political prisoners, there is no merit in treating him harshly, and not only that, is no merit for treating also very likely other prisoners there harshly, or as harshly as they're treating them. Okay, so that is one thing that we can connect from WikiLeaks and begin to expand on it and begin to act in favor of these things. Okay, to spread the awareness that what we are told is a necessary evil is not necessary and is just evil. And so another thing that WikiLeaks exposed was the grand series of Vault 7. Okay, the various methods, from spying on your TV to spying on your Macintosh to spying on your cell phone, and whatever you have connected to web, even when it's not working. And this is very much also, it's both the contribution of Edward Snowden and the contribution on the WikiLeaks as project, so grand project of leaking the entire Vault 7 documents, of how many methods were used to spy on people. Okay, and so if we connect that, as half Dutch, I can say that I never seen so many shows for missing and murdered cold cases journalism as I've seen in Netherlands. In Netherlands, really, it is a blooming industry where people are interested to find out what happened to people and to open these cases up. And so one of the things, one of the places where I've been observing and watching is the Peter R. de Vries Foundation, where they bring every, I think it is Thursday or Wednesday, they bring in a cold case, and they're doing that. In 2024, they had every week a family that has murdered a missing person, that the case was cold case, appealed to the police, please do not close the case, And that was the hashtag case not closed. And I was looking into these cases, and it seems like if I make the overlap between Vault 7 and CIA spying, basically not just on US citizens, but on every citizen, for years and years and years. I mean, Edward Snowden exposed the things in 1994, 1996, I believe. So cases from the 2000s, okay, where a man was murdered in the street, and there was a camera showing the face of a man that was blurry face, and his name was Martin. Okay, we don't know who is Martin, but if we understand that the CIA has been enacting Vault 7, it's very likely that within these records, the other records of who is Martin. What was the cell phone? Where was this Martin going? Okay, who murdered a person in 2002 in Netherlands? And not only that, there are many cases where our fingerprints, our iris, facial recognition systems are all kept and spied on. And so if I bring another bubble to connect with that, and this is Ronald Bernard, and he's a whistleblower, ex-banker, that was a member in a satanic cult. Like the conspiracies, they are all true. Okay, those things that they're all true. And one of the things that he was in charge of was to do offshore business. And on his name, they would do offshore business. Now, another method to do offshore business, to evade taxation, is to take the details and to open this offshore business on a fake identity. We know it's done with, when they actually send spies, it's done all the time, right? Because they need a couple of identities. And to have a bank of such identities, one thing to do is to kill people and take identity. Because if you are alive, you can say, where is, and if they are going to enact digital ID, a lot of people are going to, I'm half Dutch, I don't know what has my fingerprints been doing, okay? How many businesses I own, I don't know, okay? So this is also very important for us to understand. The world is going to wake up to where the fingerprints have been traveling around the world and doing all kinds of business, the money laundering business. And when we talk about dead people, okay, so say you're not alive, so it's not going to pop up. So people could be murdered just for the person you murder. You take the passport, you take the bank card, you take the cell phone, you take the fingerprints of the person, okay, the facial recognition, and so on. You throw the body, then you have. It's not a guide for what to do, but this is something that when we have the Vault 7, when it's made transferable, you can search and see, do we see the fingerprints of dead people or the details of dead people running offshore business somewhere? Okay, CIA can do that because it has Vault 7, because it's spied on all people all around the world. Okay, so it's both the wisdom of Ronald Bernard, this banker, whistleblower, Dutch banker, and the wisdom for cold cases. So there are many cold cases, many people that have been missing and that were dead or murdered for the purpose of perpetuating crime. And the fact that we already have this information, okay, it should be used at least to solve these cold cases, right? The families want to know. But it's a deeper issue here because one of the things that Julian Assange addressed was the plan to have an endless war. We know that one of the statements of JFK 7 days before he was murdered was that he said there is a plan to enslave humanity, and before I go out of my role as president, I want to expose this. 7 days afterward, poof, assassinated. And so when we connect the dots, we understand that there is such plan, and whenever we expose war crimes, And when we expose war crimes, what we expose in particular is the stupidity of the strategy, not because the people are stupid, but because the intention behind the strategy was not to win the war, to bring the refugees back, to bring the kidnapped back, to protect the motherland, and so on and so forth, or to free the country or whatnot, but actually to perpetuate struggle, even when you talk about oil or gas. Okay, and this is already my contribution, that oil or gas is one way to look at things, but we have other types of energies that do not require us to use oil or gas. Okay, we have people that developed these energies and were assassinated. And the reason that these things are not used, not only is this free energy, right, is sovereignty for the people, but the reason it's not used is because that allows to perpetuate struggle. So even when you think about, oh, it's because of the oil, or Iraq is because of the oil, even that is one layer of analysis. That we have another layer of analysis where it's to keep it in a struggle, because we have solutions for energy, many solutions for energy. Yes, but by design is to keep people struggling, so to enslave humanity by people who are suffering very much, but are suffering so much so and isolated from society so much so that they want to just perpetuate harm. And this keeps a certain wealth or old money in place, with archaic spirituality, archaic practices. Even when we talk about the world crisis, okay, we saw the ritual sacrifice and so on, there's torture, and that is keeping the world in a very archaic perception that is not so good for with the people. There's no communication, and who is to do this communication? Places like WikiLeaks. We don't need one WikiLeaks, we need many WikiLeaks, because what WikiLeaks did is nothing but journalism, okay? How do you do as journalist? You get your information. You get your information from the people who know the information. How do you get government information that is relevant for public security? For example, to know that if you are spied by the US, even if you are in, I don't know, Taiwan, is important information to know. Like, wouldn't you like to know that happens? And so you get someone, an insider, who is whistleblower, okay, and who gives you this information. This information is important for a public opinion and for the people to know. And this is when you expose basically a criminal act. And this is what journalism, if we talk about journalism, mundane journalism, is what it's supposed to do. Okay, it's not just, oh, there was this Dutch guy at the Eurovision. I'm half Israeli, half Dutch, and so we were afraid for them to, I don't know, harm the Israeli singer, and then the Dutch one did did problems. So that was very funny, and that bringing in together, okay, the notion that there is plan to create perpetual war, and becoming aware, because army service becoming mandatory in Europe and in United States. I live in a country where army service is mandatory. I hear from soldiers to tell me it's like a cult. It's their words. I did not touch. Their words. That they suffer, but then they get connected with the people, and they say to me it's like cult. And I'm like, oh my God. So this is where the national interest and the public interest and the national security is compromised on the lives of people. On the lives of people. Where every day you have Memorial Day and more people die, more people die, more people die, and the sovereignty of the state is infiltrated. So what you have is, offshore business running here, running there, to serve a goal of divide and conquer. And every once in a while you have a washing of something. And what WikiLeaks exposed to us is that we can definitely be certain that the way that prisoners are detained, even if they're political prisoners, which eventually Julian Assange became in Belmarsh, as journalists. Okay, so your political prisoners are journalists sometimes, yes? So you understand that what's done to them, how they're being held, how they're being treated, there's no reasoning for when you want to address national security. There's no reasoning, okay? If you look at The Art of War, and one of the things that I saw looked in 7th of October was The Art of War, was to know what are we expected in The Art of War. And from what I learned, you know that war is the continuation of negotiation by other means, and the entire goal is to get back to the negotiation table with as little casualties as possible and as little expenses as possible. But what happened when you take into account the economy for which people make money out of medical welfare, and out of selling weapon, okay? So this becomes economy. There is also the economy of human rights. If we tend to medical welfare as is, a lot of the issues that are coming with the trans community are non-issues, because if, of course, child cannot consent to surgeries, it's not, I don't know, if he doesn't need a heart surgery now, then it's not really point to put him under the knife, right? It's organ trade. Yes, to put it back with what Ronald Bernard said, it is what it is, yes? And that's got nothing to do with the legitimacy to be who you are. Okay, so if we turn to medical welfare, we've already addressed the medical welfare that is a part of the trans washing. So let's say a transgender person can have two options. Once, what do you have? Penis, you're a man. Vagina, you're a woman. Intersex, we don't know. Do what you want. Okay? But you only have this, or a Catholic marriage with an institution that is going to put you under surgery and surgery and surgery and surgery and surgery, and not really mind what the implications, or if you want to, that is irreversible, and so on. And this is not Dana International days, when before Dana International did the surgery, people were asking 1,000 times and informing 1,000 times. This was new procedure. But when it's become industry, then we have medical welfare entering this question, and so you cannot even be accepted as a trans person if you don't go under the knife. There are many ways to be a trans person. Okay? So this is just one thing that emanates from the art of war versus the economy of weapon trade and the medical welfare. Because the minute medicine is war related, now it has more funding. And we're told the lie that we can't, but out of this comes medicine. Out of this comes medicine. You want to do new technology, first you will do it for war, then everybody will have it. And so this is very, very, very partially true, because the unit of analysis called the human being is incompatible with, for example, ANOVA model for evidence-based medicine. This is already my contribution that brings together the WikiLeaks discussion on the economy of weapon trade and exposure of the hidden deals to do with those things. What WikiLeaks could do that Ronald Bernard couldn't do was to give the names, to show the documents. Because Bernard was in this court and he had to speak, but he couldn't say the names. That's how he kept alive. So now we already have, just in this episode, we discussed how it's not just free Julian Assange. Of course we want to free Julian Assange. Of course we need to free him. And not only we need to free him, if the First Amendment is cancelled, but the US asks to enact its laws outside of the US, Assange is outside of the US. So we have a double standard that was addressed today. It is very true. We have a double standard where US expects to bring Assange to US, but the law of the First Amendment is not to be exported. And eventually the British court says, we don't believe you that you will give him the First Amendment, the right to appeal for the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. Okay? And so what comes after the First Amendment, if we go back to the Declaration of Independence? The Second Amendment, the right to carry arms. And the Second Amendment is inspired by John Locke version of the social contract, in which he says all people are divinely entitled to freedom, to dignity, okay? The very things that are the essence of the American nation from its foundations, and as per the Declaration, right? And so but also the people need to have arms to protect themselves from corrupt governments, to address the issue of the lending of power to a regime. And so the people will need to carry arms to protect themselves from the government. Okay, so what happens when freedom of speech is, what is freedom of speech is cancelled? For example, within the United States, there are death and concentration camps for homeless. Homeless made tents, and then they evacuate them and put them in forced labor and arrest them. Of course, they will die during this process. So this is death and concentration camps. The journalists that came to broadcast this, they were arrested. We don't know what happened to them. And this is within the United States, US citizens, cancellation of the First Amendment. What does it invoke? Is calling to invoke the second, okay? The guns are not there for just shooting at each other at colleges, okay? Which are very likely by design attempts to cancel the Second Amendment, so that when the time comes, citizens won't be able to protect themselves from the government. And this is what the Second Amendment is for, inspired by John Locke. And this is where yes, if the United States is not cautious and drops this case, it is calling for invocation of the Second Amendment by everyone, because we are all affected by the fact that WikiLeaks is being sustained, it has been kept from doing its regular job, and that Julian Assange has been kept from doing his regular job on the accusation of whatever they call Espionage Act, which against a journalist, okay? It doesn't make any sense, nor will it ever. But this is already calling for invocation of the Second Amendment towards the United States, okay? This is, now if we bring together the fact that WikiLeaks is being interrupted, we understand that there are many more leaks that are not protected. Now let's talk about Boeing, because with Boeing we had around at least 10 whistleblowers that were assassinated right after they spoke up. Now, if they were having the ability to, in an anonymous way, send WikiLeaks the documents, maybe they would have been alive. So this is another way in which not having WikiLeaks and WikiLeaks-like platforms disables a lot more deaths. Okay, it disables a lot more journalism, but disables a lot more action to prevent assassination of whistleblowers, but also of people. And so the entire thing begins to create an atmosphere that kind of reminds me of when I was in between houses in Netherlands and I saw this article about the crime journalist that died, and I said, it looks like the police was involved, and I say, maybe I can channel, and I'm not professional channeler or something like this, and the first line I get is, this country is North Korea. And I'm like, this is, the passport that people sell their organs sometimes to get a passport like this. And I did not understand what is going on. And apparently, it's what I'm trying to get. Also, I don't know if I can get through that one because he has family alive, so I don't know. But this is perhaps we can, if you have mediumship skills, then maybe you can channel, Shinzo Abe, people who were assassinated, maybe even JFK, and simply ask the questions. Okay, what does the world need to know? Is another way that is not like, let's say, the WikiLeaks way to gain information. Okay. So I guess I covered a lot of things. I want to go back on the points briefly that I covered in this episode, because they are going to be very important in the future. The first thing is that it's very important that the framing of let's do it about the free Julian Assange. So in hope that people will be so busy in trying to save the life of Assange that they will forget WikiLeaks, then of course, no, we don't forget. And I really loved about the way that today's broadcast by the Free Assange movement, by Stella Assange, was edited, reminding us all of not only just why we need to free Assange for his concern and his life, but what his legacy, what WikiLeaks contributed to the world, and what crimes could have been perpetuated. This was not forgotten, and it is not forgotten. And this is something that I will be dedicating time to. And then the second point that I had was about the conditions in Belmarsh and the understanding that there are no, in terms of interrogation and security of the states, there is no raison d'etat to put political prisoners, some of them maybe journalists, under, and whistleblowers, under conditions as they are being put today. Okay, it's not contributing anything, and not only that, it rains upon both the ability of the wards, the people who do their job, to do their job correctly and have a rich life and have family life, and not be, it's the people that save, okay, the national security, and therefore it's also draining on a national security. Okay, and this refers to the WikiLeaks of the procedures of detentions of prisoners and political prisoners. The second point that I had was Vault 7 and the fact that Edward Snowden exposed in 1993, 1994 already the surveillance, the US surveillance of all the countries, okay? And so all citizens, and so if we put it together with the WikiLeaks of Vault 7 and the many ways in which the CIA can just, hack into your phone, to your TV, to your digital watch, to your digital ID, if they put digital ID, then of course, right? And put it back with cold cases and the missing cases that are not solved and can be solved by the information that CIA holds, for example. This should be made transparent, because if this can solve a murder crime and a murder case, this is important. And then I brought Ronald Bernard in and talked about how offshore business that are money laundering to not only evade taxation but do trafficking or organ trade and so on, and then laundering it under, I don't know, a housing project, kind of like you had in United States, kind of like the Section 8 or stuff like that. And I got this Israeli, it's like, would you like to invest in United States Section 8? And I'm like, that's weird. That's weird, but the people there are not really getting the housing, and so you have money laundering going on. Not saying Section 8 per se, but definitely a housing problem, right? And so you see that they have this washing project where they launder money from these other projects in offshore businesses. Now they need fake identities. What's better than to take a person off the person, take the bank card, the this, the that, and then you use it for, and then it's cold case, right? It's cold case. And for medical welfare, we had cases where you cannot have the case became cold case in 2007. You cannot have the medical records of the person whether to know if they committed suicide, were they on psychiatric drugs or not. You don't have this, and the person is dead for over a decade and a half. So what secrecy, okay, what medical privacy, who is this protecting? But it could solve the murder case, but to know what is possibly from the pills that they were, or maybe they were trying to withdraw from the pills and they didn't have support. Okay, were they taking these psychiatric drugs at the time of their death? Was it self-mord? Was it murder? And you don't have this until today, okay? Of course, CIA has this. Of course, the knowledge that's been used in Vault 7 can use to solve these murder cases, these cold cases, and then can also be the chance to expose more war crimes that we didn't even know about, not by United States, but by the upper elite that is running the cult. That you have to be in a certain secret society to make the big decisions and be exposed to this information. You want to watch Ronald Bernard more about this. And so WikiLeaks is from Vault 7, we get to, hey, you've already surveilled this information already there. Let's at least look at it, because be transparent and see what cold cases can be solved by this and what connections can be made. Okay, and that already leads to the next point, which is the planning of division and control and enslavement of humanity. And I addressed this statement by JFK that he said, there is a plan. In 1963 he said this, 7 days before assassination, there is a plan to enslave humanity. I will address this before I go out of office, and he went kaput 7 days after. So we know of this because it's economic, okay? Money changes hands when you have weapon trade, and then medicine, nobody cares about medicine unless it's for war, okay? So then you can say you can trade if you're, for example, I know, it's me, my contribution, I was teaching a doctor some basic German when I was in university, and I talked to her about my thesis proposal and so on, looking into the epistemic standards for empiricism in the medicine, holistic and conventional. And that is when we talked a little bit, and she told me, you know, I have a colleague that she did research in cancer. They found cure of people who were terminally ill in cancer. I don't remember what particular cancer. Okay, terminally ill people. We gave them, they gave them certain medication. It brought almost full remission, but then you know what happened? The research budget suddenly stopped. And it doesn't make any sense, because you would think if you find medicine, if you find cure, then they would get Nobel Prize, right? We found a cure for cancer. What you wouldn't think of is that the research stopped. Research stops usually when, how do you know, how come you cannot convince the investors? It's like, hey, we have results. right? We have results, then money flows in. But no, research stopped. They were not pulling this. But why? Because if you cannot market your but on the other hand, if I can say this is a cure, but it has side effects. What happens in the side effect? Slow-mo execution. Oh, we can use that. Oh my God, we can give this to war prisoners. We can give this to people and say it's medication. We can do this on the hash. It's good. People are going to buy it. Money runs, money flows in. This medical warfare, this is the economy of war and the economy of medicine, okay? Now, when we bring this together, we understand that it's not just free Assange, and it's not just, yes, it is the freedom of us all, okay? But also, we already have WikiLeaks, we already have this information that we need to talk about, and we need to raise awareness, and we need to connect the dots. It is your medicine, it is when you send your child to the army, which is going to be mandatory. Nobody wants you to talk to Israelis because nobody wants you to hear what it's like to live in a country where your father was killed in army, then your brother was killed in army, then your sister was killed in army because she feminist, you went warrior, then your child probably will be killed in army, at least one of them, and you live like this. Why for the motherland? Why everybody hates us, we Jews? I'm sorry. You make a dinner in Shishi, smoke some weed, and call it Aruchat Shabbat, okay, Shabbos. You say I'm Jew, okay, which is okay, it's secular. Yes, but you understand that the raison d'etre for this is no longer reasoning, it's no longer compiling. And to live in a place, nobody wants you to talk to Israelis. Why? Because if you understand what it's like to live in such country, you understand what they plan to make the whole world. Is your national security. Who are the homeless in the United States? War veterans, the people that protected your country in Iraq, whistleblowers, just people who left the house because it was violent. People got fired, didn't find good job, or people working but no housing. These are the homeless. This is the homeless. Death and concentration camp. And if a journalist try to make you see, nobody, Americans cannot talk about that. I'm astrologers, Americans, they don't talk about this. They're afraid. In the land of the free. Why? Vault 7. Vault 7, okay? Edward Snowden told you. Julian Assange told you. WikiLeaks told you. Vault 7. They feel like they cannot speak. They cannot, not in the phone, not in the this, not in the that, not in nada. This is freedom of speech. So now we understand that, and in this series of water expands upon cooling, we understand that Julian Assange himself and his case is not a cold case. And it's not becoming less interesting, it's actually becoming more interesting. Because Julian Assange was Cassandra. Okay, what is the case for Cassandra? Okay, Cassandra, the story for Cassandra, she warned about something and was ignored. Cassandra is already also a cold case of a woman that her body was found in the river, and they're looking for the documents for her. The phone card, the bank card, and 2 passports she had for her and another man. It's also called Case Cassandra. Water expands upon cooling. This is a particular quality of water. Water does this. Mostly when you cool something, it contracts. But water, it expands. No, not only that no case is cold case, but a cold case is becoming more interesting. And we have more chances to solve this. It's not less chances to solve it as it cools down if we say case closed. No, have more chances because we begin to understand what is going on. So this is episode 6 of Water Expands Upon Cooling. And it's a special episode dedicated after the hearing of Assange, so he will get another chance to appeal, full appeal. It looks better than anybody expected. Everybody hoped, looked better than anybody expected, including me. And of what you can do. First of all, begin to connect the dots. Begin to connect the dots. Second, you have the Second Amendment. Physically avoid extradition. It's already going towards direction of better direction. Third, talk about jail and condition for political prisoners and talk about the case for Assange. Use what Assange gave us in WikiLeaks and do more. And of course, that doesn't negate the things that are already done. Okay, for the Stella Assange, the Free Assange movement, where they have all their own steps that you can actually take for whichever place you are. You can take a step. And as astrologer, I say to you, is very important for the times of Pluto in Aquarius. And especially for Sedna in Gemini. Because Sedna in Gemini, it is about children and child trade, versus also child soldiers. They're making all these wars. And is also about betrayal and themes of betrayal. Gemini is also technology. So if you think about the digital ID, the fingerprints, anything you have two of, and you think about intelligence, surveillance, and so on, frequencies. So the gate of Sedna and Pluto, but Sedna in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius, to tend to these cases, to the freedom of speech and to the freedom of sharing information, and not to keep the information as kind of like mass surveillance and so on. This is a great remedy for these astrological placements, and for those of you who are looking from astrological point of view, that is great remedy. So speaking up is psychic protection. Yes, it is. To stay in your body, to be present in your body, you do when you speak up. You make movement. And very, very grateful for all the people that have been participating, raising the awareness for Julian Assange, fighting for Assange, but also raising awareness for satanic ritual abuse and ritual abuse. I'm beginning to look into the politicians in the Netherlands that are doing something about this. I need to study deeply a person around this topic before I broadcast for the sensitivity of the topic. Sometimes I get this, sometimes otherwise, yes. But there's another person that I want to bring into the discourse. I need to study him more deeply when it comes to that. And also for the alternative platforms that we've been having. Okay, it's also time to be grateful for X and for Elon Musk for providing a platform that we managed to trend Julian Assange. Okay, not me, I'm shadowbanned, but from even this point of being shadowbanned, I can see that yes, the Julian Assange and Free Assange case was trending, and this is something that was more difficult to achieve on other platforms, if even possible. And we also to be grateful for that. Also to take into account, okay, the sensitivity of the topic, and that is, yes, very important. And of course, the many people who do and deal with not just the funds, not just the journalists who expose cold cases and missing people cases, but also the people, whether you're in Netherlands, whether you're American, whether Australian, European, other language, and you hear me through translation. I know my accents change, so it's difficult to translate me, but I'm trying to be as clear as possible. And with the people that tend to these cold cases, that think about this, to spend the time to think maybe they know something. Maybe they know something. Maybe they know somebody that knows something. Talk about this case. Oh, did you hear about that case that was this Wednesday or this Thursday? That these people are not long forgotten, if we're not letting go, because it does mean something grander, and there are things there for us, okay, and for those who raise awareness to assassination prevention. I'm a bit of I've been very active around this topic in recent times, and it's not just journalists. The way that people are assassinated is both in the domestic violence and what seems like domestic violence. I begin to understand it's more than that, but also journalists, yes, but also leaders, presidents. Okay, we lost Shinzo Abe to this. I will address, there was this trend of not in my name from European representatives regarding the, I think there was Israeli Mossad pilot, like that's what we were told in Israel, that was flying the plane for Iranian minister. I don't know what was his job, but he was called kind of like the butcher of Tehran. That was his nickname. And the way I will address this is that there are those hidden societies that Bernard is talking about. Parts of their businesses is also what we call nation states. And while the not in my name is seems legitimate, and yes, you're not happy, you're not sorry that a butcher of Tehran died, yes, and is on the one hand kind of raising awareness, yes, we stand against this, but it's also important to do something that the leaders cannot do, and is to understand that there is the divide and conquer also between supposedly ideologies, and supposedly suddenly radical this rises, radical that rises, and this is orchestrated, is by design, and the leaders can be even very trapped in those situations, because you maybe 2.5 decades ago you said, well, I don't like the fact that they bring radical Islamist people that want to have Sharia law in Europe along with, and everybody that's not like this can stay, but I don't want this in Europe. I want Europe to be Europe, okay, not Sharia law, and was basically kidnapped and imprisoned. It has to be in 24/7 watch for 2.5 decades. This is Mr. Geert Wilders, and maybe sometimes, at that point in your life you said that, and you noticed that, so you said that, and you kept saying that because it's still true, but there is also the fact that those radicalists and their infiltration to Europe is by design, and the very radicalization of them, even in countries like Afghanistan or Iran of '79, might have not been so sovereign from the countries what we have been represented is that yes, the Taliban went to rise without resistance from the people. We understand the picture is a bit different when it comes to people's rights, women's rights, but also people's rights. It's affecting everybody. Okay, if men don't have rights respected, then women are beginning to be deteriorate. Even regardless of like sexual this, if women don't have rights respected, men begin to look. Yes, it's affecting all of us. And if children don't have the right respected, yes, this is the curse of the century, not just for the children, but affecting also all society. You think it's like, yes, but how can I care? What can I do? What can I this? What can I that? It's affecting your life. You date someone, maybe they are into discord, enable discord in some, maybe a friend they know, maybe the someone they vote for. I don't know, you watch a TV series or you hear music, this, and you say, oh, I would like a boyfriend like this, and you get a boyfriend like this. You get my point, right? So you think it's not affecting your life. Of course it's affecting your life, even if you survived, let's say, childhood abuse yourself. And then for the isolation, sometimes difficult. And so it's affecting all of the fabrics of our lives. And we need to understand that those interferences are by design. Okay, it doesn't make any rational sense for people to fight with each other, or for people to sexually violate each other. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make, because if we are attuned and we're present and we're healthy, when the vagina not wet, the penis is, it drops. Okay, you see, I can talk in the. It seems like it doesn't work. Then you see, oh, she was thinking about something, and she was dissociated a bit, and vice versa. Okay, it's not necessarily not attracted, but it's like you're not ready. Then they feel they're not ready either. This is what natural. This is what is natural. But wax is this, because people go through all the fears from intimacy, from sexuality, and it's by design. It takes a lot of energy to invest to make someone a terrorist, or to make someone abusive, or this, or this, and this is by design. And it's irrational. But we also have to be aware of this irrationality, and to understand that this evil is not necessary at all. And from that point, we can grow. So that was episode 6 of Water Expands Upon Cooling, with special dedication to Julian Assange. I will keep updating, we'll keep connecting things, and we'll keep talking about things, we'll keep doing things that expand in each in their own way on this. Yes, it is of course tremendous victory, and it's lovely to have Great Britain telling to the US basically, we don't believe you. That's every reason to say this. And standing for Assange. And also he's still in Belmarsh. Okay, he could not attend the hearing today because his health would not allow this. This is a man, father of 2, husband, that hasn't seen his homeland in a while. I know what you got to say about Australia. I'm going to note in this episode. We want to free Assange first. So yes, and this is important. And hopefully, we were hoping maybe for Gabriel's 7th birthday he will get his father free. This didn't happen yet, and we still have to keep it. Now we are the journalists. We are the journalists. We are in charge of the public discourse. We have to keep this news alive, and we have to connect it with other news. And when we hear things that come to intercept this discord, we need to be smart. Each one of you has to think like editor. I want to keep this news alive because this news alive is important for people not to forget. How do I integrate it with the new knowledge that is coming in? Okay, for example, 7th of October could very easily be avoided had the watchers, the IDF watchers, leaked to WikiLeaks just the footage, what they see. Months before, what they see, had they leaked. They said they're planning something. At first they will invade Israel, then Israel will respond. And then they will respond on Israel. And then who gains the benefit? The person who gets over the land. Who's over the land? Not Israel, not Palestine. This is important to understand. So, see you in my next video.